We have a big problem. All of our institutions that we have trusted are now pushing this agenda where gender is a social construct, amongst many other things that they've been pushing, but let's just, because we're on this topic, we're just going to talk about this. Scientific experts have become ideological in saying that there are no biological differences in the brain between men and women. You literally see new research coming out and saying these things, and it's actually very scary. It's scary because then these people, it's one thing for, a psychiatrist or psychologist or some doctor, whatever, come out and say, oh, I think this. But it's a completely different thing to now go and publish a paper with your loony idea and saying, here's your proof, here's my published paper. And people use this, people read it and they believe it. And they're like, oh, gender is a social construct. Look, it's in a published scientific paper. Scientific papers that are coming out now are compromised. Our institutions are now compromised. The reason is that you cannot challenge this narrative. If you try to challenge this narrative, you are going to get attacked by transgender activists. There was a study published last year on gender dysphoria, and it was to bring up a debate on how, because they found something with the sensory networks and the brain sex, and it wasn't what people thought, whatever it was, and they got major backlash. It was so bad that they actually had to retract the paper. Transgender activists came out saying, oh, it's transphobic, you just don't want people transitioning, and they had to retract it. Of researchers and doctors, they know the truth, but they will not put out these things anymore because of the major backlash. And it's not just major backlash like they get yelled at, it's like people go after people's families, or you'll get canceled, you could lose your job. The list goes on and on and on. No good ethical researcher is going to touch this subject anymore. Any research paper that comes out now is all activist-led. If you're in the medical world and you speak to other researchers, other, doctors, they read these studies, because if you read these studies in depth, there are tons and tons of papers and you see the actual sample sizes, and so they read the actual papers, and that paper will come out and say, well, gender is a social construct. And these researchers will say, actually, no, that's not what it proved at all. You just picked and chose what to put in your paper and published this paper. So it's very, very sad that we're living in this type of society now. Have you gone on the WHO's website and seen their definition of gender? It's probably the saddest thing I've ever read in my life. The WHO literally says on their website that gender is a hierarchy and produces inequalities that intersect with other social and economic inequalities. That is something.